Hey, hello friends, Dan Nelson here. I am happily sitting at my illustration desk today, not doing an oil painting. I've got two paintings downstairs in my in my oil painting easel, in my oil painting studio that need touching up, and I'm really anxious to get to those, but in the moment I have a couple little pressures that I need to take care of. So I've called this a hodgepodge of odd jobs. Let me show you. First of all, I'm working here on an architectural rendering. I have one client for whom he does landscape design, and so I do landscape architectural renderings for him. They're usually pretty loose stuff, and the task at hand at the moment is to actually the task is to remember. Now, what did he tell me? I can't find my notes, but in any case, I know that I need to do a rendering of this house from an aerial view so that we can show the client sort of in one illustration, what their house is, what their backyard is going to look like when this architectural work is done for them. And so I'm trying to remember. Well, no. At the moment, I'm just trying to render, and this is one of those typical American, what some people call McCastles, like McDonald's castles. Pretty expensive house, evidently. Pretty big house. There on the country club property somewhere. So my first task is simply to do an aerial view, a raised view of this house. By aerial view, I don't mean straight down, but at an angle. So that'll be fun. And then I'll start worrying about the architecture, because that's one job. The other job on my plate at the moment is back to this scratchboard cartoon job that I did several weeks ago for a client, and he came back to me and said that he wants some diagrams done. So this is just some real rough sketches. By the way, I did this. Let me show you how I did this. So I don't know if I will do all of the diagrams this way, but let me show you. I took a fat Sharpie marker and made some fat lines like that, then took a whiteout pen and in order to emulate a scratchboard look. Can you see how I'm doing that? So here's a bunch of lettering that I did using that technique, and I've already sent some of this to him saying, is this what you're looking for? So that's job number 2. Now, job number 3, I actually sat here all day yesterday, can you believe it? And didn't bring you guys in one time. I did 6 illustrations, completed 6 illustrations yesterday. 1, 2, 3. Sat here for 12 hours. 4, 5, and 6. Actually, 7. Sorry, and 8 there. It's a long story. I won't. 6 or 8. And so that way it was a enjoyable day because I was just doing all these pen and ink illustrations. Some of you might remember that pen and ink is actually one of my oldest mediums, my oldest techniques, and the one that has gotten me the most subscribers on YouTube is actually pen and ink. I'm known around the world more for my pen and ink than my oil painting, which is funny. So that's a third job. But today I am on that same job, same assignment, but I'm doing a different thing. The job today is to do renderings. So again, just to show you the kind of stuff I get into. I did these sketches with my client over coffee last week. The girl, the heroine in this story, has a deformed left leg because she broke it when she fell into a bear trap. at the age of 7 or 8. And so we were talking about, well, what kind of deformity is it? So I was actually drawing this foot with my client there, and we were discussing what kind of toes this girl has. Yes, these are the things that an illustrator has to do at times, is what kind of toes does this girl have? And here's another illustration that we discussed quite a bit, is the first cane that she was given as a little girl was this cane that because she was too young to work with a regular cane, it's a cane that has a crook at the top that she can hold with one hand, and a Y that her grandma put a pad on to go under her arm. So it's a two-handed cane, and we spent quite a bit of time discussing out anatomically how does that work. And yes, her arm goes over one arm goes over, armpit goes over this fork in the cane, and the other hand has to go around her head. So yeah, this is what we ended up with. So one of my challenges, one of my assignments today is to figure out how to render a little girl who's holding one arm over her head like so, and the other arm, she's got this armpit support, and her other hand coming down and grabbing the shaft of the cane. So as you can see here, I'm not even doing my normal, like this is my normal rough sketch. Scribbly, loose, anatomically fluid drawing. But if I'm already thinking, yeah, but what if I want to be looking down on this little girl? And so instead of drawing anatomically loose, I'm drawing what I'll call an anatomical construction. And this is too tall. She's a little girl. She's not supposed to be this tall. Let me draw this anatomical construction without the cane. So again, I mentioned this last week one time. When you are when you're stuck doing an anatomical drawing, and in this case, I didn't even wait to get stuck. I'm just, because I know this is such an unusual viewpoint of a little girl. I'm starting with an anatomical construction. Thanks, my art station. Yeah, I was fairly happy with those 8 illustrations that I ended up with. So again, I don't know how much to repeat. I talked about this quite a bit last week. What I'm trying to show here is we're looking down on a little girl, about 8-year-old girl, and so that's a challenge enough, just to be looking down at somebody instead of straight at somebody. So that's an anatomical challenge. Are you with me? And not only that, but she's in a very unusual disposition, very unusual orientation of her body. So one of the tools I have, and she's got a deformed leg. So do you see all those things make this not your typical? Here's what I'm trying to get at. Can I draw a little girl standing, we're standing and looking at her? The answer is yes, absolutely I can. Okay, and there's like the beginning of my very rough sketch. And then of course I come in and I clean it up and I make corrections to the anatomy and so on and so forth. And in just a few minutes, I have a very believable little girl. How come? Well, there's two reasons. One is because I've drawn, you know, hundreds of little girls in my journey of doing artwork. But the other reason I can do this is because this right here that I just sketched for you is very typical. Got it? Typical, kind of a typical pose and typical viewpoint. Are you with me? Typical pose, typical viewpoint. So this is easy. Smiley face, easy. You with me? Now, I don't know that I'm going to do a high view of this little girl, but I feel like somehow for these are illustrations for a book. I feel that doing a high view, like an adult looking down at this girl, will sort of will convey the emotions of this scene a little bit more realistic. You know, for drawing Tiny Tim in Charles Dickens, one viewpoint of that Tiny Tim, it would seem to me, would be to look down on him because he's tiny. Are you with me? So we're an adult looking down. That's what I'm thinking here. I'm not sure that I'm going to do that. But again, we do one more sketch for you real quick. So anytime I have to do what is not typical, what is not easy, sometimes instead of drawing like this, my normal scribbly and then fix the anatomy little by little, I'll do my anatomical construction. So again, I did this last week. I'm going to do it again for those of you who miss it. Here's a human being. This is straight out of George Bridgman. Let me show you the book. Again, forgive me for those of you who have heard me do all this before, but many of you missed it last time. So here's George Bridgman, legendary teacher of anatomy at the Student League of New York. Legendary. His work, 1920s, nearly 100 years ago. George Bridgman. Brilliant. Brilliant. As I've said, I drew every single drawing in this book I drew about 10 years ago, maybe more. So I got pretty thoroughly George Bridgmanized. Got it? Okay, so this is my take on George Bridgman. Here's the human viewed from the front. Here's that same human viewed from the side. And then you start making, and so here's a human, that same human viewed. Well, I'm doing it from above. I must have above on my brain, right? Here's that same human viewed from a high angle, and here's shoulders, here's arm, here's hips, here's legs, and so forth. Are you with me? And by the way, as I said last week, this is also, it's a combination of George Bridgman and one of these mannequin characters, okay? It's a combination. I've had, not this one, this one's nice and shiny and new, but I've had one of these sitting in my illustration studio for over 30 years. And I've glanced at it and drawn from it many times. So it's helped me. How do I know? You know, how do I know that this arm is this long? Well, because I've been looking at this for 30 years. Are you with me? So I went into more detail on this last week. Go back and look at it if you want to see more about this. At what I'm calling anatomical construction. Okay, it's turning the human anatomy into a machine-like, box-like, simplified, so that you can get the anatomy right. Okay, now let's go all the way back now. Now that you know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, let's go back then to this little girl. I'm going through a lot of paper with you guys, aren't I? And again, I've got 3 jobs on my table. On my table. By the way, I love having 3 jobs. I mean, these are all fairly. No, I was going to say small. No, this book illustration is huge, but each illustration by itself is fairly small. So I love having a number of jobs. A word to possibly some of you young artists, if any young art or students, one of the things your professors will tell you is, maybe some of your professors, Let's leave the professors out of this. One hears in the art world, develop a style and stick with it. Don't confuse your clients. There's certainly a grain of truth in that. Certainly. All of my paintings that are in galleries are all of the same ilk. I have a style. Of my oil paintings look like Dan Nelson. Everything's in a gallery. But as you can see, I have a very wide art career. And I think having a wide, multifaceted, multi-stylistic, multi-mediums art career beats the pants off having one style. Now, if I was G. Harvey and if I was getting paid $100,000 a painting, I have no doubt I'd feel a lot different. Good luck with that. There just aren't many of those super rich, it's like being a rock star, right? For every one rock star, don't forget there are a million garage bands that are never going to make a penny on their music. And you do the math, I'm not sure those numbers are right, but they probably are. Same thing in the art world. For every one G. Harvey or a Richard Schmid or even Jeremy Mann, for everyone that's making $100,000 a painting, there's 1,000 people like me. The good news is, see, it's raining outside today. It's chilly and it's raining. Unusual for April that it's still chilly. But I don't want to be outside playing or painting today. I really don't. I am so happy to be sitting here on my butt, on my chair, in my nice office with my music playing and making money. It's wonderful. I recommend, if you're thinking about an art career, make it a multifaceted art career. Now, I know not everybody can do that, but that's okay. Okay, whew, aren't you glad that little speech is over? Let's go back now. A little girl holding a weird cane. Here's the client. Here's the sketch I went over with my client. This is what we agreed on. Do I really want to be looking down? How about if I'm looking up at her? This is pretty much a straight on view. And I don't know if you've heard me talk in this particular assignment, this particular book illustration assignment. One of the things I want to avoid, to be a good illustrator, is you try to avoid the overuse of the snapshot view. The snapshot view is what I call, it's what most people do with their cameras. And God help us, now everybody's got a camera with their phone. It's you're standing there and you go like this, click, 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 at eye level. A good photographer will do high angles, low angles, off, side angles, and so on and so on and so forth. So, for instance, there's this kind of a high view of a bed. Here's a girl laying on a floor, and the camera view is 6 inches off the ground. Here's one where we're looking at different girls swinging on a vine, and we are actually above her. She's 15, 20 feet off the ground, and we're 5 feet above her. So we're 25 feet off the ground. Low view, high view, landscape view, snapshot view, snapshot view, snapshot view, low view. Here's a wedding scene. Do you see what I'm talking about? So here, the camera is like 1 foot off the ground. The eye level horizon is right about there. So we're at about 18 inches off. We're looking up at the bride and groom. These two figures that are up close to us, we don't even see the top of this guy's head. It's intentionally cut off. Here's another one. Here we are. Somehow we've managed to get ourselves, as the viewer of the scene, we are about 10 feet off the ground looking down on this girl being carried on this improvised stretcher thing. Do you see what I mean? That's what you call variety. Here's high view, low view, snapshot view. Get it? So anyway, enough of that. I'm just telling you how to be a good illustrator. And by the way, the man that's schooled me, absolutely schooled me in this kind of thinking. It's one of my favorite illustrators in the whole world, one of the best illustrators in America. His name is Chris Van Allsburg. And if you live in America, you've seen his work. Won all kinds of children's book illustration awards, but he's had two of his children's books made into three full-length feature movies. One was the Polar Express Christmas movie, and now he's had two feature-length Jumanji. Those are based on Chris Van Allsburg, and he's brilliant at this alternate angle. So he's the one who schooled me really when I'm 30 years ago, when my kids were little and I was reading Chris Van Allsburg books to them. By the way, just for fun, I don't know if I have it up here, my favorite Chris Van Allsburg book, no, it's somewhere else in the house. If you want to look this up, if you want, just for fun, The Mysteries of Harris Burdick. The Mysteries of Harris Burdick. My favorite children's book of all time, bar none, by Chris Van Allsburg. If you want something fun to look at, Google it. Okay, now back to the girl. Do I want a high angle? Do I want just a snapshot? This is pretty much a snapshot. Do I look at her from the left or from the right? Here she's got the thing under her right arm. Here she's got it under her left arm. Decisions. Once again, when you're an illustrator, you're kind of like the movie. You're like the movie screenwriter. You're like the movie choreographer. You're the movie director, all wrapped up in one. You have to make all kinds of choices, whether you want to or not. And so that's what I'm doing here, is trying to decide, okay, what do we want to see? Do we want to see a low view of this girl, or a high view? And does she hold it under her left arm or under her right arm? It's her left leg that is broken. And so when your left leg is broken, do you carry the cane on your right side or your left side? The answer, by the way, I believe is both. And in the last year, I was using crutches. I tore up my meniscus last summer, and I discovered that it was my right knee that was damaged, and I used a cane. I used crutches for a while, and then I used a cane sometimes, but the cane sometimes on my right arm, sometimes on my left. It works either way. There's no right way, in my opinion. There's different ways to use a cane. So here we are looking down at this little girl. Again, I think she's a little bit too tall here. Let's put a skirt on her so she feels like a little bit more like a girl. I've got her head turned at an angle. Yeah, head at this angle. That works. This shoulder is hunched up because she's got a cane under it, But this shoulder is raised up because she's got it over her head. So both shoulders. So from the front, her shoulders are like this. One is up because she's going like this. One is up because she's got this thing under. So both shoulders are hunched. That makes a difference. Yeah, I think I like this angle. So here's one trick I do. Okay, there's a first rough sketch. Turn on my light table, turn the paper over, and draw it again, making corrections. First of all, her head needed to be a little bit bigger. She was looking a little too old. So I've made her head larger. And I don't know if she's got her hand this way or this way. I have yet to decide which way her head should be going. Her hand should be going. She's wearing an oversized t-shirt. She's a poor country girl. She wears her brother's hand-me-down t-shirts, which on her are like a dress. Aha. There we go. Yeah. See, and by the way, I have a mirror. Let me show you real quick. I have a mirror in my office. Can you see me? There you go. Got it? And that mirror is there so that I can stand up. Let me move it so you can maybe see me a little bit. That mirror is there so that I can stand up and pose different ways, and I see. Then it lets me see how my body is moving. Does that make sense? And every studio I've ever had for the last 30 years has had a mirror in it, including in this case my oil painting studio downstairs. I have a big mirror on the wall, not because I'm vain, but because I'm an artist. I'm now seeing if she has to grab this thing. By the way, I'm not going to keep you here with me too much longer. But I think it might be fun for you to see the process that a quote unquote a real artist goes through. She's barefooted. Her whole family pretty much lives barefooted. They're mountain people. And her left leg is damaged. Of course, that's why she's using this cane. So I've got to make her left leg look kind of weird. But let me show you the next step of this process. So I've drawn it twice now. Drawing number 1, drawing number 2. Now let's go back to drawing number 1. And I erase everything over here. This particular technique of using a light table, I've been addicted to for 40 years, probably. Back in the day when I was a cartoonist more than anything else, which always makes me funny. It makes me laugh now to think, because now I'm best known as an oil painter, but 30 years ago I was moderately well known as a cartoonist. It just seems funny. Life is funny. Okay, so now I'm ready to embark. Do you see that? You can see that, right? You can see that the figure is a little bit more developed than it was. And by the way, I am liking this high view of her, looking down on her. I want her to feel like I want the viewer to have a heart of compassion. It's like, oh, she's so tiny, she's so cute, kind of, it's so sad she has a broken leg. Are you with me? And of course, I invite you to notice how I hold the pencil. Anything like this will work. Anything but this. This is good for shading, that kind of stuff. But when you're doing the real art of drawing, you want a grip that facilitates creativity and facilitates looseness. And yes, and that is not unusual. This is not a Dan Nelsonism. This is a classic art professor statement. And yes, you do find people on the internet, decent artists, who hold their pen this way, and it drives me nuts. And yes, I want to slap them. Don't do it. Do not copy those. Do not copy that type. Copy me in this regard. In this regard, of course it feels weird. If you've been doing this your whole life and then you try to switch, of course, don't do it for 5 minutes and say, I tried it and it feels weird. Give me a break. Of course it feels weird. Okay, now, her left leg is a different one now. Which one? Yeah, I think I'm going to keep her damaged leg on the side of her crutch. Because I think most people think that most of the time a little girl would use the crutch cane on her damaged leg side. So I don't want to mess up, even though I believe that's not always correct. I think most people will think that. Okay, now let's give this girl some hair. She's got a big old, she never even brushes her hair. She's just got a big old mop head of hair, according to the story. So there you go. Are you with me? That's drawing number 3. right? This is drawing number 2. Same thing again. Let's erase this one. Cool trick, eh? The light table. I mean, it takes a little bit of work to erase. And of course, you don't have to erase. You could use tracing paper. Let me show you the kind of paper I've been using for this job. Mostly, again, marker paper. Translucent, a kind of tracing paper. Very translucent, easy to see through. And if you don't feel like erasing, you can easily see through this paper, through 2 layers of this paper. And one of the fun things about that is you can keep all your rough sketches. Okay, so there's, I'm done with rough sketch number 3. This is number 4. This eye needs to move. This eye needs to move. She's got freckles. She's got a diminutive little chin. That's like the most characteristic thing about this girl. Cute little pointy chin. Let's fix her hair a little bit. Yeah, when a little girl holds one arm up and she's wearing a baggy t-shirt, the sleeve basically just bunches down to her shoulder. So are you with me? I'm just thinking out loud with you. Elbow bone definitely showing there again. And fingers not coming around quite as far as I've indicated because they're little girl fingers. They're not fully developed by any means. Here's this cane. Yeah, and her head is leaning to the side, and basically her head is hugging up against the side of this cane. That feels real to me. Now this shoulder is hunched up because she's got part of the, I better make sure that the viewer can see. And this sleeve comes all the way down to her elbow, maybe even a little bit below her elbow if it's her big brother's oversized t-shirt. You with me? So I'm gonna let's make her the sleeve bunches up on the inside and then hangs down on the outside. And she's just got little girl hands that don't quite go around all the way around this. 3 fingers together, little pinkies separated. I think that feels like a little girl. So on this side, her t-shirt is bunched up because she's got this thing stuffed under her arm. Are you with me? And again, I'm just letting you in on all my internal dialogue. On the other hand, this side of her t-shirt has stretch lines going this way because this arm is all raised up. And a little bit of anatomy on her knee here. A little bit of anatomy. But when I say anatomy, that means in my mind, I'm thinking, now what is a human anatomy of what does a knee look like? What does a calf look like? Where's an ankle bone? Right there. Can you see the top of the foot, the wedge, the top of the foot, all that kind of stuff? That's what I'm thinking about. I'm by no means an expert on anatomy. I'm just pretty good on anatomy. I'm speaking like a professional artist. I'm pretty good for a professional artist. That is to say, there are people that are a lot better than I am. I'm not comparing myself like to the average person. I'm way better than the average person. Are you with me? So there's drawing number, and I'm going to stop right there. I feel like that's number 4, right? I've lost count now, but I think that's number 4. Now, just for fun, just to make you guys feel better. Now, which way do I want the light coming from? Why does it matter? It does matter. Oh, she lost some of her hair with that last sketch. Let's put her hair back behind her head. It has the direction the light is coming from has an impact, has an effect on the emotional impact of the drawing, left versus right. In other words, is more of her face in shadow or more of her face in light? Straight down light. Is she outdoors? Yeah, I think I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to make her light, mostly straight down, slightly. In other words, I don't normally draw an arrow, but just to help you guys see what I'm doing. So here I'm holding my pencil in the traditional grip, right? Because I'm no longer drawing per se. I'm doing shading and little details. Like I could come in here and make sure, try to get her eye a little bit more correct. So I feel like this sketch, and by the way, I love mechanical pencils for this kind of stuff. You always have a sharp point, etc., etc. So just for what it's worth. So this is the sketch that I'm going to show my client tomorrow when we get together. The last thing he saw was this with me, and now I'm going to show him this. And hopefully he'll say, yeah, that looks great. And then next week, I take this pencil sketch all the way to final ink. And again, my final inks look like this. Got it? And I use a light table to trace. And when I say trace, I don't literally mean trace line for line for line. No, in the final ink, I make little corrections. I think again about anatomy. I correct these fingers and I correct these toes. This is just good enough for the client sketch. So if this is rough sketch number 1, and there's a couple, that's rough sketch number 1. This I would call rough sketch number 2. And I did end up letting you watch the whole time. You watch the whole process. Got it? And I'm glad that I showed you the very beginning. Remember when I was talking about anatomical constructions, where her head is a cube, basically. It's a particular shaped cube, it's not a square cube. I use this. And because she's a child, her head is basically large. This is an adult. Make her head bigger. And that helped me to get the anatomy correct pretty quickly on this rough sketch, wouldn't you say? Is that 15 minutes? Okay. So that's one of the things I'm doing this afternoon. Yay, got one done. Thanks for watching. And the other thing I'm going to be doing is back to a similar thing, by the way. I have to draw an aerial 3-dimensional view of a house. And I'll draw a real rough sketch. I'll turn on my light table. I'll turn it over and make corrections and go back and forth a couple times. Cool, huh? I think it's cool. And then again, I've got this scratchboard cartoon job where I'm not really drawing cartoons, maybe some stick figures, but more like diagrams and words. So that's my day. If I go downstairs and touch up a couple oil paintings, I'll probably do another daily adventure. Hope that's somewhat instructive, and I certainly hope it's entertaining. Am I entertainment or educational? I sincerely hope that I'm both. Thanks for watching.